was so exhausted from the daily verbal abuse from my husband, as well as the physical labor I did at my part-time job at a cabbage farm, that I fell asleep as soon as I got home that day. Eventually, my husband's furious yelling woke me up. In an instant, I felt my blood rush away from my skin, and fear enveloped my heart.
Make me dinner 5 frickin' minutes, woman. And mark my words, if you can't do what I tell you, we're getting a divorce. Do you hear me?
I felt the blood rush back to my skin, and I could feel a hot, passionate rage well up inside me. Of course, Master, I'll follow your orders to the frickin' letter. But you'll have to take responsibility for all your evil doings, though. My name is Aaliyah, and I'm a 30-year-old part-time employee. My husband, Parker, is 34 years old and works in an office. We initially met at work because he was assigned to be the one to educate me in the ways of the work. And our friendship blossomed into something more when he confessed he had feelings for me. We stayed together for 22 months until we got married. This was 3 years ago. Peter is a hardworking, serious person who doesn't drink or smoke. He was a perfect partner for me, but he had a habit of lecturing me, which I found to be quite a drawback. I resigned from my job when we got married, mostly because he wanted me to.
I admit I'm a bit of a nervous wreck, so I'm probably going to meddle in the housework that you do. But I can't say much to you then because you'll be tired from work. So, I want you to be a full-time housewife if you don't mind.
If you say so, I'll do my best with the housework, but until we have kids, I'd rather work even short hours, or maybe a part-time job to save more money.
You don't need to worry about money, Aaliyah. I'll work hard at my job and make the money we'll need for the future. If I come home tired from work and the house isn't clean, that's going to be harder on me.
I mean, if you insist that much... Alright then, I'll be a stay-at-home mom. And so, I started my life as a full-time housewife. At first, I was not very good with housework in the beginning, and it took me a long time to do it all. But as I got used to it, I could finish most of the cleaning and laundry before lunchtime, and then I only had to think about the dinner menu for the night. And as I got more accustomed to it, I was even able to manage the dinner menu with an app on my phone, and the amount of free time I had at home increased pretty sharply. I'm sure a lot of people have an image of a housewife always being busy with taking care of the house, but since I had no children then, and since where I lived was a one-story house with a small surface area to clean, having more time on my hands was an inevitable consequence of my new job. One fine afternoon, I had nothing to do, so I was watching a talk show on TV and was sipping a cup of coffee. Great. I'm bored again today. I'm so tired of doing the same thing every day. When I was single, if I had even a little bit of free time, I would go shopping, or have lunch, or go to the movies with my friends. However, as a housewife comes with the disadvantage of being at the mercy of my husband's income, I couldn't do anything that cost a lot of money. Besides that, our house was in the country, far from the city. I thought I would be more comfortable and convenient for us to live in an apartment or condo in the city, but my husband insisted on owning a house, so we bought a house that was on sale on the outskirts of town. Surrounded by fields, the house is still quite some distance away from our nearest neighbors. And these neighbors were all farmers, with a very busy schedule throughout the year, so it was darn near impossible to talk to them other than the occasional greeting and small talk. I do think it's a luxury to be able to live in my own home, and my husband is paying off the mortgage on this house. I know I should be grateful to be able to live with lots of space and little distractions that one would find in the city. But I was not very attached to our house, because it was never my dream. It did not reflect any of my opinions or wishes for the future, but what could I do? I was a housewife and lived on my husband's income. Trying to talk to him about my own vision for the future, especially after his hopes and dreams were all pretty much a reality by that point, was just not possible. I simply had no choice, and make the most of my life in the countryside. since I had so much free time, I started doing some muscle building exercises I had seen on TV. I didn't want to stay home all day and let my body relax too much. I knew that could give me a hard time later on in life. I got quite hooked on the exercise I began to do, and as a result of my enthusiasm, to my great surprise, I started to get shredded abs. After about a year of marriage, I was so bored to death that I was mostly working out in my spare time. And because I was doing so much, I got very fit. This had to stop. I had to do something productive. I decided to take some action, and I went to talk to Parker, who came home from work. Hey, honey, I want to talk to you about something. Do you have a minute?
Yeah, I do. What's up?
So, I don't know if you know this, but actually, as a full-time housewife, I have a lot of spare time. I get the cleaning and the laundry in the morning, and I have the whole afternoon off, pretty much. Up until now, I've been using that time to exercise and do yoga and stuff like that, but I'm starting to feel that it's just a waste of time. I want to be productive. I want to go out to work.
Work? Of course not. You have to do the housework perfectly.
Of course, I'll do the housework as perfectly as I've done up until now, Parker. But I really do think that it's a waste of time to spend your spare time doing nothing. All the while, Parker was listening to me with a furrowed brow. He was clearly not liking what he was hearing, but I didn't give up, and then I said to him, "Please, Parker, I'll work for only a short time as a part-timer. So, please, can I work for a little bit?"
As a part-timer, huh? But I don't think I can get a good part-time job around here.
I think I can get a job as a helping staff on a farm around here. It's only a daytime job, so I don't have to work at night. Don't you think it's a good compromise?
Working in a field? You really think you can do that kind of hard labor?
I'm positive I can. Hey, can I please? It'll help me lots, honey. And it'll help our future a bit too, because I'll be providing too, even if it doesn't amount to much compared to you. Please, Parker.
All right, but don't cut corners on the housework.
Yes, of course. Thank you, honey. After receiving my husband's permission, I immediately went to a farmer's market and applied for a job in a cabbage field. Because of the shortage of labor, I was hired right away. And that's how I started working for the first time in over a year as a farm helper. Working in the cabbage fields was hard labor indeed, especially since it was harvesting season. The work consisted of carrying loads of empty crates to the vegetables ready to be harvested, manually cutting the stems off the heads of cabbage, and hauling them into the crates until they could carry no more. I'd never seen so much cabbage in one place. It was insane. It was very hard sometimes, but I was glad to be able to use the muscles I had trained unwillingly and in vain. Compared to the days when I was confined to the house, working under the sun helped me sleep better at night too. Such was life until one day, everything changed. Because I was busy with more work than usual that day, I came home an hour late. I hurriedly started to prepare dinner to make it in time for Parker's return, but before the food was ready, he walked through the door.
I'm home. Hey, wait a minute. Dinner isn't ready yet?
I'm sorry, honey. I came home late, but it's almost done. I'll hurry up so you won't have to wait much longer. I thought that was the end of that, but then I heard my husband click his tongue in annoyance. I turned around to look at him in bewilderment, and he was glaring at me with a very angry look on his face. My husband proceeded to yell at me with the look of the devil himself, spitting all over the place.
This is exactly why I was against you working. Why won't you just accept being a freaking full-time housewife, Aaliyah? It's not that hard. You imply that yourself. I told you time and time again that you have to do the housework perfectly.
Parker, please calm down. I just happened to be late today, and only today. It won't happen again.
How dare you talk back to me? You promised that you would never cut corners in the housework. What the frick do you call this right here? Who the hell do you think I am? Do you think I'm stupid?
I don't. I really don't. Please, Parker, calm down. Why are you yelling at me so much? I couldn't help but shudder at the sight of my husband's face, which contorted beyond recognition with rage and disappointment.
Listen to me. You are a housewife and nothing else. Have you forgotten about that? Your main job is to do the housework and take care of the home, and your husband, the head of the family. The frick do you mean you came home late? Don't talk so big and sassy for a lowly part-timer. You have no idea what it means for extra hours.
Parker, this is too much. Why must you be this way?
Shut the hell up, whore. Don't put your own poor performance on the shelf. How can you play the part of the victim when you are clearly so bad at your job? If anyone here is troubled because of the situation, it's me. If this ever happens again, mark my words, you're going to quit that stupid job. If you still want to do that, see if I freaking care. And don't underestimate me, Alia. I'm dead serious here.
I was too shaken to respond. So my husband said he was going out to eat and left the house. I collapsed to my knees right where I stood and burst into tears. I wondered if that monstrosity was the same man who had been so serious and so kind. The same man I'd fallen in love with, the one I married. It filled me with so much sadness that I became frightened of him. I wondered what in the world had triggered him so much. Was he that unhappy with the delay in preparing dinner? How could he yell at me in such a scary, rude, and intimidating manner? I did the rest of the chores that day without ever uttering a word to Parker after he came home. Neither did he, but he kept glaring at me as if he was watching me. His verbal abuse escalated with time, and I eventually began to feel like I was being treated more like a slave than a housewife.
Hey you, what's this yellow stain on my shirt? Are you washing them properly? Don't be so careless, damn it.
I do wash them properly, Parker. It doesn't look yellowed to me.
What did I tell you about talking back at me? I have to take my clothes to the dry cleaners now because you can't seem to make a single decent decision. I'll deduct the cleaning fee from your living expenses, all right?
Oh, no, my living expenses already doesn't amount to very much. I can't afford to be given any less.
It's your own fault because you're just an incompetent wife. Be thankful I haven't divorced you yet. Take a look at this.
My husband took out some sheets of paper from his bag and held them in front of me. They turned out to be divorce documents, with his section already filled in. With tears streaming down my face, I poured my soul into all the apologies I had to offer him. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Parker. It was all my fault. Please, forgive me.
You clearly don't know how to apologize properly. Come on. Get down on your knees and rub your head on the floor.
I got down on my knees as he told me to. I knew that if I didn't, he would yell at me again and never stop until I was rendered to a catatonic shelf of trauma and anguish. Damn, that was pretty cheesy, but you get the gist. As long as I apologized to my husband in this way, he would get back in a good mood and leave me be for another while before the same thing happened again. As these hard days continued, I myself began to think about divorce multiple times. However, I did not think I could make a living separated from my husband. There was no way I would be able to support myself on my part-time income from the cabbage farm work. One day, when I was getting ready to go home after finishing my part-time work, I was approached by a mother who was also working part-time. "Listen to me for a minute," she said. I was doomed. The woman who approached me was known as Mrs. Titano, and talking with her when you were in a hurry to get somewhere else was a bad idea. And this was exactly my situation. I wanted to go home as soon as possible, but Mrs. Titano's long conversations were notorious among my fellow part-timers. Still, I couldn't just abruptly end the conversation and leave. So I went along with the conversation for what I thought was a little bit. I was listening to her complaining about her husband, about how annoying her work was, and other such idle, meaningless chatter. Oh, my! Look at the time. Well, good night, Miss Aaliyah. Nice talking with you. After finishing what she wanted to talk about, she quickly left. I checked the time and immediately felt myself go paler than a slice of mozzarella. I saw that it was almost time for Parker to come home. It seemed I had been listening to Mrs. Titano's blah 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 for about an hour. I rushed home, but I was about 10 minutes late. For a split second, I considered making a run for my own safety, but I thought that would only make the situation far worse. I decided to swallow my fear and get inside the house. While I did swallow my fear, hypothetically, it came right back. I could feel my hands trembling as I unlocked the front door and went inside. The atmosphere dawned a sense of disquiet, and it reminded me of the kind of atmosphere one would feel while watching a horror movie. Just before the protagonist finds a mutilated body at their feet. My heart was pounding as I pushed the door to the living room open, and I found my husband standing with his arms folded, and he was not happy.
Got any idea what time it is?
I'm sorry, Parker. I tried to hurry home, but a fellow part-timer started complaining about her husband, and I couldn't finish the conversation.
Making excuses now, are we? Well, you just wasted a few precious minutes of my day.
I know, I messed up. I'm sorry. I'm going to make dinner right now.
Oh, so you're going to make me wait even longer? It's very nice of you.
How about you take a bath first?
No, I can't. I can't take a bath until I've eaten. What the hell is your frickin' problem? If you don't get your ass in the kitchen and whip something up in 5 minutes, I'm divorcing you. I'm not kidding. I'll get you to sign these divorce papers.
This was just standard procedure at this point. He began to unfold the filled-out divorce papers again and started to lay them out on the table, one at a time. I rushed to start cooking dinner without even putting on my apron. All the while, my husband was glancing at his watch and glaring at me, monitoring me like I was an assassin cooking up some poison for him to eat, making sure he logged every single one of my moves. No matter how much I hurried, 5 minutes was merely a blink of an eye. My husband began to shake his head in an attempt to show me how much longer I was making him wait.
How much longer are you going to make your husband wait, woman?
I cried out in horror and managed to finish preparing dinner in 10 minutes. It was a simple meal, but my husband's favorite. Then my husband clicked his tongue somewhat quietly, ate in silence, took a bath, and went to bed in the bedroom. I felt my entire body relax as my husband released me from this nightmare, and I fell into a slump. I was sick of living like this. Why did I ever have to be treated like this? I sacrificed so much for this man, and how was he repaying me for more than 1 year of excellent care for the home? Unfair, judgment, abuse, threats of divorce, a seething hatred welled up inside me towards Parker. A few days later, I went to work as usual. By that point, I didn't have much of an appetite, and I wasn't sleeping well either, so I felt very tired when I got home. I set down my bag, drank a glass of water, and just completely zonked out on the couch. Eventually, my husband's furious yelling woke me up. In an instant, I felt my blood rush away from my skin and fear enveloped my heart.
How long are you going to stay in the bed, damn it? Make me dinner in 5 frickin' minutes, woman, and mark my words. If you can't do what I tell you, we're getting a divorce. You hear me?
And here it was again. Parker's 5-minute cooking YouTube challenge. I felt the blood rush back to my skin, and I could feel a hot, passionate rage well up inside me. This freaking bastard ordering me around like I'm nothing but his stupid pet. Just you wait, master, for my counterattack is about to commence. I got up tardily and lazily, met Parker's intimidating glare with a calm composure, and said, "All right, 5 minutes it is. In return, you don't complain about whatever cooking I can conjure in that ridiculously short time. Okay? I took a cup of noodles out of the kitchen cupboard, quickly ripped open the bag, put it in a bowl, and poured hot water from a pot. I then offered it to my husband and said, "We're having ramen tonight."
But that's frickin' instant noodles, ain't it?
I pointed my index finger directly at his nose and shook it side to side. "No, it's not. It's privately homemade ramen." My husband looked shocked, as though he'd been slapped in the face. But then he came to his senses and stood up.
I'm not eating this, damn it.
He went to the refrigerator, but of course there was nothing inside. He trudged back to the table where I waited with my arms crossed, glared at me as he sat down, and started slurping down the noodles I had made in literally less than 5 minutes. "How is it? Isn't it delicious? I'm so smart that I can make this in 5 minutes, aren't I?"
You gotta be frickin' kidding me. Listen, the next time you do something like this,
Yeah. Divorce, blah, blah, blah. If I don't cook anything within 5 minutes, we're done. You only told me a couple thousand times already. Mark my words, though. I will make everything within 5 minutes. That way, we'll both be happy. Right? My husband's mouth was agape for a moment at my retort. But then he said in a faint voice,
5 minutes and not a second later.
The next day, I toasted a slice of bread for breakfast and served it to my husband without spreading anything on it. "This is all I could do in 5 minutes, master."
What the hell?
Even a second later, and we're getting a divorce, right? So, I won't ever take more than 5 minutes. That night, I served him microwaved rice and a hamburger steak. Of course, I set the timer for exactly 5 minutes.
Hey, this is still cold. How the hell can I eat this?
Do you want me to take more than 5 minutes? Then can you bring me the divorce documents?
What? What the hell are you talking about?
If I reheat it, it'll take more than 5 minutes, Parker. Per your rules, I have to sign the divorce documents so that you can be free of my terrible housekeeping skills.
Oh, no. Well, if you made it in 5 minutes, I guess it's okay.
Parker seemed to have sensed that I really wanted a divorce too by then. Gradually, his outbursts became less rude, and he instead began to sneer a lot more often at me, as though he was monitoring what I was doing exactly. As I continued to serve crappy meals like this, my husband eventually began to feel a little under the weather. But I couldn't care less, and on this one particular day, I tried to heat up some frozen food in the microwave, for 5 minutes, as usual. Then my husband croaked in a voice that sounded like a crow.
Hey, Alia, dear. I'm not feeling too well today. Can you please make me a bowl of rice porridge?
I thought it was time for me to give him up. There was ready-made rice in the fridge that could be heated up, and I could have mixed it up with water to make it into a porridge-level consistency, maybe add a bit of raw egg and show you for some taste. But I wasn't going to do that because he treated me so terribly over the past few months. So I was going to give him a taste of his own medicine. Instead of making him good rice porridge, I soaked raw rice in water, microwaved it for exactly 5 minutes, and served it to him. Of course, it was still raw. 5 minutes are up, Parker.
What the frick is this garbage? This is worse than eating boiled guano for dinner. Whatever happened to that lovely human heart of yours?
Human heart? Well, call me a little girl getting a puppy for Christmas because I'm very happy that you mentioned that. Answer me this. Where did the Parker I fell in love with go? For the last couple of months, you treated me like your own personal slave, and all the nasty things you said to me have stuck with me for so long, you bastard. Think about what you said to me for a minute.
I won't have you talking back at me.
And there you go again. How many freaking times have you yelled, "How dare you talk back to me? How dare you talk back to me?" I can't do this anymore. I'm not going to let you get away with it. Just give me the divorce papers, please. I'll sign them right now.
How can you live on your own?
Sorry, what was that? You think I can't live on my own? Well, newsflash, buddy. Before I married you, I was a normal, independent person with my own job and with my own life. Saying this, I took out of my husband's bag the filled out divorce papers that he always used to threaten me with. My husband panicked and jumped on me to stop me. I was so angry with him at that point that my vision and my mind was a blur. But the characteristic sound of a hand slapping a face resonated in the room. Parker's head was far smaller and lighter than a head of cabbage, and the blow sent him tumbling towards the kitchen, where he fell onto his stomach. Apparently, I had developed quite a bit of arm strength from muscle exercise while on the hard daily job in the cabbage fields. Oh, I'm sorry, but it's your fault for trying to be rough with me.
You...
My husband was mumbling something bitter, but perhaps he was too sick, or perhaps the force of the slap that wound up in my well-developed brachial muscles made his eyes roll back in his head, and he couldn't get up anymore. I finished filling in my section of the divorce papers, filed them with the city hall, and quickly got the divorce finalized. I notified both of my own parents and his of the divorce. My in-laws found out about their son's behavior toward me and generously apologized to me on Parker's behalf. My ex-husband is now living alone in the house, but because Mrs. Vaccarella, his mother, used to take care of him at home, and apparently has zero housekeeping skills, my husband's parents decided not to help him out so that he could take care of himself in the future. He is now living by himself and is becoming an increasingly miserable man, and people at his job are spreading the all-too-correct rumor that his old wife ran away from him due to verbal harassment and toxicity in the home. As for me, I decided to return to my parents' house for a while, so I had to quit my part-time job at the cabbage farm. But thanks to the work experience, I became pretty interested in agriculture, and my current plan is that after I take a few years to study agriculture a bit more professionally, I am planning to get a new job in earnest in that domain. My life with Parker has ruined me from marrying someone again for the time being. But should future experiences prove to me that good men are still out there, I think I can be willing to give it another shot. Wish me luck.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. "Still here?" Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. "I'm leaving." I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick? What's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? Alright, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. I didn't do anything wrong. You're still saying that? Look at him. Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract? Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go. Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him. There's no way he was pushed aside. Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he? I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.